Jillian was behind the bakery counter, focused on meticulously counting the previous day's profits. Each coin and bill passed through her hands with precision, as she murmured the numbers to herself, absorbed in the task. The sound of the door opening pulled her from her reverie, and she looked up with an expression of irritation already etched on her face. An elderly woman, with a humble appearance, wearing visibly worn clothes and a tired look, approached the counter hesitantly. Her steps were slow, and her posture indicated a mix of shame and need. "Good morning," said the lady, her voice soft and almost trembling. "Could I possibly get some bread? I don't have the money to pay right now, but I promise to bring the amount tomorrow." Jillian lifted her gaze, her eyes locking with those of the lady, and a look of disdain formed on her face. "This isn't a charity," Jillian responded with a dry and impatient tone. "If you don't have money, you can't take anything. Now please leave." The elderly woman lowered her head, humiliation clear on her face. She turned around slowly, her shoulders hunched under the weight of rejection. When the door opened again, this time for Elena, a 37-year-old businesswoman, Elena entered with an air of confidence, dressed elegantly, her shoes echoing on the bakery's floor. She was on the phone, discussing business with an authoritative tone. "Yes, I understand, but we need to review these figures before tomorrow's meeting," said Elena, as she headed to the counter. She waved at Jillian with familiarity and a warm smile. "Good morning, Jillian," said Elena, disconnecting the call for a moment. "I'll have the usual, please." Jillian immediately changed her demeanor. The previous hardness disappeared, replaced by a professional smile and efficiency. "Of course, Elena. I'll get it for you right now," Jillian responded, quickly preparing the order. While waiting, Elena noticed the elderly lady standing, almost exiting the bakery. She observed the sad expression and the trembling hands of the woman. Everything about the scene deeply touched her, reminding her of her own struggles early in her career. Elena ended her business call with a quick, "We'll talk later," and put her phone in her purse. She approached the elderly lady with an understanding look. "Wait, please," called out Elena, her voice firm yet kind. The lady turned around slowly, surprised. Elena turned to Jillian, who was placing the order on the counter. "Jillian, take the change for my purchase and cover the cost of the bread for this lady," instructed Elena without hesitation. Jillian hesitated for a moment, clearly uncomfortable, but the determination in Elena's gaze made her comply. She took the change and handed a fresh loaf of bread to the elderly lady. "Here you go," said Jillian, still reluctant. The elderly lady looked at Elena with eyes brimming with gratitude. "Thank you so much, ma'am," said the lady, her voice choked with emotion. "My name is Evelyn. God bless you." Elena smiled, a smile that radiated warmth and understanding. "You're welcome, Evelyn," replied Elena. "We all need help from time to time. Take care." Evelyn held the bread carefully, as if it were a precious treasure, and waved in thanks before leaving the bakery, still moved. Elena turned her attention back to Jillian, who watched the scene with an expression somewhere between confusion and discomfort. "Jillian, sometimes a small gesture can make a big difference in someone's life," said Elena, picking up her bag with the order. "Remember that." Jillian nodded, still processing the unexpected lesson of that morning. Elena smiled again, and with a nod, left the bakery, leaving Jillian reflecting on the events. Elena opened the door to her home and was immediately enveloped by the familiar warmth she longed for. Marie, her 18-year-old daughter, ran to greet her with a radiant smile. "Mom," exclaimed Marie, hugging her tightly. "How was the trip?" Elena sighed, feeling the accumulated fatigue from the business trip, but also the satisfaction of achievements. "Exhausting as usual," replied Elena, returning the hug affectionately. "But we managed to close a great deal. It was a big step for the company." Marie gently pulled her mother towards the kitchen. "Come on, Mom, you need to eat something. Robert is helping to prepare dinner." As they entered the kitchen, they found Robert, 19, focused on cutting vegetables with precision. "Look who's here," said Robert, smiling at his mother. "Welcome back, Mom. How are things in the business world?" "Thank you, dear. Things are going well, but I have an important meeting early tomorrow," replied Elena, sighing. "I'll need to rest a bit after dinner." Marie took a bowl of salad and placed it on the table. Mom, you need to eat something before getting back to work. You've been pushing yourself too hard. I know, Marie, said Elena, running her hand affectionately through her daughter's hair. I promise I'll rest a bit after dinner. They all sat down at the table, and Robert served the food. As they ate, the conversation naturally turned to the encounter at the bakery. Mom, what happened today at the bakery? Asked Marie, curious. You seemed a bit thoughtful when you got home. Elena took a deep breath before responding. It was an unexpected encounter. An elderly lady, named Evelyn, was at the bakery asking for free bread. Jillian, the attendant, was quite rude to her. I couldn't just ignore it. I asked Jillian to use the change for my purchase to pay for her bread. Marie looked at her mother with admiration. That was very kind of you, Mom, but it's so sad to see people in that situation. The lady seemed so grateful. Yes, it was sad to see that, agreed Elena thoughtfully. It made me think about how privileged we are. Sometimes we forget to appreciate what we have. Robert nodded as he chewed a piece of chicken. Life can be really hard for some people. I'm glad you helped, Mom. Those small actions can make a big difference. Elena smiled, proud of her children. That's true, Robert, and today reminded me of the importance of being grateful and helping others whenever possible. Marie continued, still reflecting on the event. Do you think we'll see that lady again? It would be nice to be able to help more. Elena took a sip of water before responding. Maybe. I didn't recognize her, but it seemed like she was going through a really tough time. If I see her again, I want to see if I can do more. Robert changed the subject, trying to lighten the mood. Speaking of tough times, how's the preparation for that meeting with the investors, Mom? Elena laughed, grateful for the change in topic. Oh, the meeting. It's going to be intense. We need to present the new project and convince the investors it's worthwhile. It's a big challenge, but I'm confident. Marie looked at the clock and then at her mother. I don't want to tire you out further, but you really should get some rest now. The meeting tomorrow is early, and you need to be at your best. Elena stood up and hugged her children. You're right. I'll rest. Thank you for always taking care of me. You are my greatest treasure. Marie and Robert smiled, pleased to see their mother finally taking time to rest. Elena went upstairs to her room, her thoughts still swirling about the encounter with Evelyn and the responsibilities waiting for her the next day. As she lay down in bed, Marie's words echoed in her mind, reminding her of how precious life was and the importance of maintaining a balance between helping others and taking care of oneself. The next day, after a morning full of commitments, Elena finally had a moment to relax and have coffee with her daughter, Marie. They sat on the porch at home, enjoying the afternoon sun. The conversation naturally returned to the encounter at the bakery. You know, Mom, I can't stop thinking about the lady you helped yesterday, Marie began in a thoughtful tone. Elena nodded, also pensive. It was a quite unexpected encounter. She seemed so vulnerable. It's hard to forget. She frowned, as if trying to remember something important. Mom, what did she look like? I mean, can you describe her in more detail? Elena, surprised by the question, reflected for a moment before responding. Well, she was an elderly woman, probably in her 80s. She wore very simple and worn clothes. She had gray hair and eyes that seemed filled with stories and sadness. Her name was Evelyn. Suddenly Marie turned pale. Her breathing quickened as her mother's words sank into her mind. Mom, I think she's the grandmother I never met, said Marie, the surprise evident in her voice. Remember what you told about Dad's mother? Elena froze. The memory of Arnold, her late husband, and the complicated relationship with his mother Evelyn resurfaced, bringing a wave of conflicting emotions. Her eyes narrowed as she tried to process the revelation. It can't be, murmured Elena, more to herself than to her daughter. Evelyn hated me. She never accepted our marriage. After Arnold died, she cut all contact. Marie, now more curious than ever, insisted. Mom, do you think she could be in such a difficult situation? I mean, how did she end up like that? You never mentioned much about her. Elena sighed deeply, knowing she would have to open a painful chapter of her life. Evelyn never liked me, Elena began, with a melancholic tone. When Arnold and I got married, she thought I wasn't good enough for him, always criticizing, always finding faults. When he died, she blamed me for the accident. It was devastating. I couldn't cope with her pain, nor my own. so we simply drifted apart. Marie held her mother's hand, offering comfort. I'm sorry, Mom. I never imagined the story was so complicated. But if she's struggling, maybe we should try to help somehow. Elena looked at her daughter, her eyes reflecting a mix of pain and hope. I don't know, Marie. She was always so harsh with me. I don't know if I can face that again. But at the same time, I can't ignore a person in need, especially if she really is Arnold's mother. Marie gave a gentle smile, trying to encourage her mother. I think you should try. Maybe she has changed over time. People grow old and regret things. It could be a chance for healing for both of you. Elena was silent for a moment, pondering her daughter's words. The idea of encountering Evelyn filled her with apprehension, but also a strange sense of necessity. It was as if this encounter was inevitable, a part of fate she needed to face. Maybe you're right, Marie, Elena finally said. Maybe it's time to face the past and try to rebuild some form of relationship, or at least seek closure. Marie smiled, pleased with her mother's response. Let's find out where she's living. We can start looking for information and, who knows, offer the help she needs. Maybe this will bring peace to us all. Elena nodded, resolute. Yes, let's do that. I know it won't be easy, but it's something we need to do. Marie stood up and hugged her mother tightly, feeling that they were about to embark on a new, emotionally charged journey. As they parted, a sense of determination grew within Elena. It was time to confront her fears and seek the truth, however painful it might be. Elena spent the night awake, thoughts and emotions keeping her from sleeping. The memory of Evelyn, her mother-in-law, and all the conflict and hostility that marked their relationship vividly surfaced in her mind. Each bitter word exchanged, every look of disdain, all returned with painful clarity. She tossed and turned in bed, trying to find a comfortable position, but it was futile. Evelyn's words at the bakery echoed incessantly, "God bless you." There was a tone of sincerity and need in her voice that Elena couldn't ignore. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight illuminated the room, and Elena slowly got up, her movements sluggish and weighed down by fatigue. She looked at herself in the mirror, noting the deep, dark circles and the exhausted expression. As she prepared to leave, she heard a gentle knock on the door and saw Robert, her son, standing at the entrance to the room. "Mom, are you okay?" asked Robert, concern evident in his voice and eyes. "You look like you didn't sleep at all." Elena forced a smile, trying to alleviate her son's worry. "I'm fine, dear," she replied, fixing her hair. "Just a lot on my mind." Robert frowned, not entirely convinced. "Is it about the lady you met yesterday?" he asked, insightful as always. "Marie told me what you discovered." Elena sighed, feeling the weight of the inevitable conversation. "Yes, Robert, it's very complicated. Evelyn, the lady I met, is my mother-in-law. We never had a good relationship, and she blamed me for your father's death. Thinking about forgiving her and helping her, it's very painful for me." Robert stepped closer and placed a comforting hand on his mother's shoulder. "I understand, Mom, but maybe this is an opportunity to resolve things. It could be an important step for you, for us. We don't have to make decisions now, but it's something to consider." Elena nodded slowly, absorbing her son's words. She knew he was right, but the idea was still overwhelming. "I'll think about it, Robert. Thank you for listening. Now, I need to hurry, or I'll be late for work." Robert smiled, trying to cheer her up. "Of course, Mom. If you need anything, I'm here." Elena gathered her things and left, thoughts still heavy on her mind. On the way to work, Evelyn's words continued to resonate. "God bless you." Was it possible to forgive someone who had caused her so much pain? Upon arriving at the office, she was greeted by Matthew, her business colleague. He immediately noticed the tension in Elena's face. "Elena, you look exhausted. Is everything okay?" asked Matthew, genuinely concerned. Elena gave a tired but sincere smile. "Rough night, Matthew. A lot on my mind, but I'm ready to face the day." Matthew nodded, understanding. "If you need some time or to talk, I'm here. We have a full schedule today, but I know you can handle it." Matthew's words were a small comfort, but they couldn't dispel the persistent thoughts about Evelyn. During meetings, presentations, and discussions, Elena found herself distracted, her mind always returning to that aged figure and the words of Marie and Robert. At the end of the day, as she prepared to leave the office, Elena checked her phone and saw a message from Marie. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. I think we should meet Evelyn again. Let's talk when you get home. Love you. Elena sighed deeply, feeling the weight of her children's expectations and her own internal struggle. She knew facing Evelyn would be painful, but perhaps it was the only way to healing and peace. On her way back home, she passed by the bakery where everything had started. She paused for a moment, observing the familiar facade, and remembered the encounter with Evelyn, the desperate look of the lady. Upon arriving home, she was greeted by Marie and Robert, both eager for news. They sat down together in the living room, and Elena began to speak, her voice laden with emotion. I've been thinking a lot about everything, Elena began. You both are right. Maybe it's time to face the past. I want to meet Evelyn again and see what we can do to help her. It won't be easy, but I'm willing to try. Marie and Robert exchanged looks of relief and support. We're with you, Mom, said Marie, holding Elena's hand. We'll go through this together. Robert nodded, determined. Yes, Mom. You're not alone in this. We'll find Evelyn and see how we can help. Elena smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude and renewed strength. Thank you, my dears. Let's do this, said Robert with a plan in mind and the unconditional support of her children. Elena felt more prepared for what was to come. She knew the path wouldn't be easy, but with love and determination, they could face any challenge. At the office, Elena sat at her desk trying to focus on the reports and emails piling up. The words danced on the computer screen, but nothing seemed to make sense. Her mind was far away, caught in a whirlwind of thoughts about Evelyn. Every time she tried to concentrate, she remembered the tired look of the old woman and the words of Marie and Robert. Matthew, her business colleague, noticed Elena's restlessness. He had been watching her for a few minutes, noting how she ran her fingers through her hair, a clear sign that something was bothering her. Elena, are you okay? Asked Matthew, his voice soft and full of concern. Elena looked up, surprised by the question. She sighed deeply, feeling the need to share the burden she carried. Matthew, actually, I'm not doing very well, admitted Elena, resting her elbows on the desk and rubbing her temples. I met someone yesterday who brought back a lot of painful memories. Matthew pulled up a chair and sat next to her, showing his willingness to listen. Who did you meet? He asked, encouraging her to continue. Elena took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. I met Evelyn, my mother-in-law, Arnold's mother, my late husband. She was asking for bread at the bakery, in a pitiful condition. I never imagined I'd see her again, especially under those circumstances. Evelyn was always very harsh with me. She never accepted my marriage to Arnold and blamed me for his death. Matthew was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. He knew part of Elena's story, but not the painful details of her relationship with Evelyn. It must have been a shock to see her like that, said Matthew finally. It was, and now my children think we should try to help her. But I don't know if I'm capable of forgiving her after everything we've been through, confessed Elena, her voice choked. Matthew leaned forward a bit more, his eyes full of understanding. Elena, sometimes forgiving is more about ourselves than about the others, he said gently. Seneca said, forgiving others for their mistakes is a gift you give yourself. It may seem hard, but forgiveness can be liberating. It can help you shed that weight you carry. Elena pondered Matthew's words. What he said made sense. Forgiveness wasn't just for Evelyn, it was also for her to free herself from grievances and find peace. I've never thought about it that way, Matthew. I've always seen forgiveness as something that benefited the other person more. But maybe it's time to look at it from a new perspective, said Elena, slowly, feeling the internal resistance begin to diminish. You're a strong person, Elena, and making this decision can be an important step for your own healing. And your children, they are willing to help. You're not alone in this, Matthew said with an encouraging smile. Elena smiled back, feeling a bit lighter. Thank you, Matthew. Your words really helped me clear my mind. I think it's time to confront my feelings and deal with the past. Matthew nodded, pleased. I'm always here if you need to talk. And remember, you don't need to make all decisions at once. Make one step at a time. Elena spent the rest of the day with renewed clarity. She knew the decision to forgive Evelyn wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to try. When she arrived home that night, she found Marie and Robert eagerly waiting for news. "Mom, how was your day? Did you manage to think about what we talked about?" asked Marie, the concern evident in her eyes. Elena sighed and sat down on the couch, her children by her side. "Yes, I thought a lot. I spoke with Matthew, my coworker, and he said something that made me reflect. Forgiving may be more about us than about the other person. I think it's time to face the past and see what we can do to help Evelyn," she said with resolve. Robert smiled and placed his hand on his mother's shoulder. "We're with you, Mom. We'll face this together, one step at a time." Marie nodded, relief visible on her face. "It's going to be hard, but I believe we can do it. Let's find Evelyn and see how we can help her." Elena hugged her children, feeling a wave of gratitude and courage. She knew the road ahead would be filled with emotional challenges, but with the support of Marie and Robert, she was ready to take the first step towards forgiveness and reconciliation. The next morning, Elena woke up with a sense of purpose. Despite the anxiety consuming her, she knew she needed to confront Evelyn. After a quick breakfast and exchanging a few words of encouragement with Marie and Robert, she left the house determined to resolve the past. Upon arriving at the bakery, Elena took a deep breath before entering. The familiarity of the place, the smell of fresh bread, and the soft murmur of conversations helped calm her nerves. Her eyes scanned the room until they found her, Evelyn sitting in a corner, seemingly lost in thought. "Evelyn," Elena began, hesitantly approaching the table. "Can we talk?" Evelyn looked up, surprised. Her eyes reflected a mix of emotions: surprise, pain, hope. "Of course, Elena," Evelyn responded, her voice slightly trembling. "I think we have a lot to talk about." Elena sat down at the table, feeling the tension in the air. There was so much to be said, so many wounds to be exposed and perhaps healed. I could hardly believe it when I saw you yesterday," Elena started, breaking the silence. "So many things came flooding back. The last time we spoke was painful." Evelyn nodded, her hands trembling as they held her coffee cup. "I know, Elena. The things I said, I can't take them back. I always thought I was protecting Arnold, but in reality, I was pushing you two apart." Elena sighed, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "After Arnold died, I was devastated, not just by his loss, but also by what happened between us. And seeing you now in this situation, it made me realize how much things can change." Evelyn lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "My life took a turn I never imagined. After Arnold passed away, I withdrew from everyone, including you and my grandchildren. I made poor choices, trusted the wrong people, and eventually lost everything. I ended up alone and destitute." Elena felt a pang of pain in her chest hearing this. As tough as Evelyn had been, she didn't deserve to end up like this. "I'm sorry for everything that's happened, Evelyn. No one should go through that." Elena paused, gathering courage to continue. "My children, Marie and Robert, want to meet you. They were shocked to learn you're here and want to help." Evelyn looked at Elena, her eyes shining with tears. They want to meet me after everything I've done?" Evelyn's voice broke, filled with regret. "Yes, they do," affirmed Elena, holding Evelyn's hand. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after them. Marie and Robert believe in forgiveness and reconciliation. I want to try too." Evelyn squeezed Elena's hand, her tears finally falling. "I made many mistakes with you, Elena. I never accepted you and Arnold together, and it destroyed us. But now I see how wrong I was. I should never have let pride and anger guide me." Elena felt her own tears begin to form. "Thank you, Evelyn. Hearing that means a lot to me. Let's try to start over. It won't be easy, but I'm willing to try, for the sake of all of us." Evelyn wiped away her tears, a timid smile forming on her face. "I would like that very much, Elena. I want to meet Marie and Robert. I want to be part of their lives if they'll allow me." Elena nodded, feeling a weight lifted from her shoulders. "Let's do this together. Today is the first step towards a new beginning." The two women remained seated, sharing stories and memories, feeling that, finally, they were building a bridge over years of pain and hurt. Elena talked about raising Marie and Robert, the challenges and victories. Evelyn, in turn, shared about the misfortunes that led her to her current situation, but also about her regrets and desires for redemption. When the conversation came to an end, both felt lighter, as if a new door had been opened. "Can we meet again?" asked Evelyn with a hopeful tone. "I'd like to start being part of your life, their lives." "Of course, Evelyn. Let's do that, replied Elena with a genuine smile. We're just getting started. The conversation between Elena and Evelyn had unveiled layers of pain and regret, but also created space for hope. Elena felt an inexplicable relief, as if a massive weight had been finally lifted from her shoulders. She looked at Evelyn, who still held her hand firmly, and felt a genuine connection for the first time in many years. Let's try to start over, Elena said with a sincere smile, reaching out to Evelyn. You have a family that needs to meet you. Evelyn, with teary eyes, accepted Elena's hand. The tears that had been contained for so long finally began to flow down her wrinkled cheeks. Her voice was choked up as she spoke. Thank you, Elena. I don't know how to thank you. Elena smiled, feeling a deep peace she hadn't experienced in years. It was as if a dense fog that had obscured her heart was finally clearing. She knew the journey was just beginning, but that first step was monumental. Returning home, Elena was overflowing with emotions. As soon as she entered, Marie and Robert were in the living room, anxiously waiting for news. Mom, how did it go? Asked Marie, eager, as Elena sat down on the sofa, breathless and with a sparkle in her eyes. It was surprising, said Elena, trying to gather words to describe what had happened. Evelyn and I had a deep conversation. We talked about everything, about Arnold, our past, our grievances. Marie stepped forward, hugging her mother tenderly. I'm proud of you, Mom. Forgiveness is a difficult but necessary step. You did what few would have the courage to do. Robert, who had been standing near the window, turned to Elena, his eyes gleaming with emotion. Mom, I think now we have a chance to be a complete family again. Evelyn, our grandmother, is part of our history, and maybe, just maybe, we can rebuild what was broken. Elena held her children's hands, feeling a warm embrace enveloping her soul. It was a moment of redemption, of rebirth. She realized that forgiveness was not just for the other person, but also for herself. I don't know exactly what the future holds, said Elena with a moved smile, but I know that, with your help, we can do this. We can rebuild our family, step by step. Marie and Robert exchanged glances, nodding in agreement. Marie, always the more sensitive one, moved closer to Elena and hugged her again. Let's do this together. Let's show Evelyn that she can still be loved and that she has a second chance to be part of our lives. Robert also stepped closer, placing a hand on Elena's shoulder. I don't know how things will unfold, but I'm here for you, for us. Let's take this step, Mom. Elena felt a wave of gratitude and love flood her heart. There was much to resolve, much to forgive, but there was also new hope, a new chance to build something beautiful from the wreckage of the past. That night, as the house warmed with the heat of reconciliation, Elena couldn't help but think of Evelyn. She thought about the woman who had been so hostile and distant, and now for the first time saw a spark of humanity, a flame of regret and desire for change. Maybe somewhere she's wondering if there's hope for us, murmured Elena, more to herself than to her children. And I want to believe that there is. I want to believe that we all can change, that we all can redeem ourselves. Marie and Robert, sitting beside her, just nodded silently. Dinner that night was lighter, more filled with laughter and shared stories. Evelyn was far away, but already became part of their lives in a way none of them could have predicted. And so, with forgiveness and reconciliation, the story concludes, underlining the importance of overcoming past grievances and valuing family ties. Elena, Marie, and Robert were ready to face the challenges of the future, united by the invisible thread of love and forgiveness. And in the distance, a new hope began to dawn, bringing with it the promise of a fresh start. The horizon, once dull and undefined, now unfolded with colors of renewal and possibilities. The path was open, and with each step taken together, Elena and her family knew they were ready to rewrite the story of their lives, assured that even after the storms, there will always be a rising sun to illuminate their paths. So if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support, and see you in the next videos.